Let's all welcome Dr. Vishal Mangalwadi. He's a renowned Indian Christian philosopher, a social reformer, and an author of over 30 books. That's a lot of books. Born in 1949, Dr. Mangalwadi has dedicated his life to exploring the intersection of faith, culture, and social justice. As a philosopher and social reformer, Dr. Mangalwadi has worked tirelessly to promote rural development and transform India's caste-based feudal social system. He has written a lot. I'm sure some of you have at least read these books, these wonderful books. He's written extensively on the role of the Bible in shaping world history and its culture. Dr. Mangalwadi has impressive academic credentials and degrees, and he's been honored for his contributions to social reform, and he has served as a lecturer, a public speaker, and author who's inspired countless individuals around the world. He's also been awarded the Presidential Medal by the Biden administration. Ladies and gentlemen, join your hands. It is our privilege to host Dr. Vishal Mangalwadi today as he shares his insight on the Bible's impact on India. Please join me in giving him a warm welcome.
Thank you very much for this very special privilege and honor to be here with you. And just 4 days ago, we were with a pastor from Jodhpur. He and his wife are businessmen who also run a church, pastor a church, so bivocational mission leaders. And he said that he was leading a fellowship of 99 churches in Rajasthan. That's the seed that was sown all those years ago, 60 years ago. This is just one fellowship of Assemblies of God in Rajasthan. And all of these 99 churches, about 90 churches, he said, are first generation Christians. And of course, they're stepping out to believe Jesus, follow him, is one of the reasons why the church is facing persecution. The persecution is horrible, but it is creating a church which is very different than the colonial era church in India. This is a church that is being born throughout India with all the seed that has been sown in spite of human imperfections and sinfulness, a church that is being refined by fires, faith which is being tried like silver and gold. And this gives tremendous hope for the future of India. So during Q&A, we will have more time to talk about some of my journey of how I got into this writing. But this is my at least fourth book on the Bible's impact on Indian history. And we have enough content for 3 or 4 more volumes of how modern India is a creation of the Bible. It's very possible that you would be skeptical about that claim that the Bible created modern India. So I'd like you to consider the fact that in 2023, the ruling party in India wanted to change the name India to Bharat. You see that when you fly in Indigo. Indigo is Go India. The company's name is India. But in the magazine, it's all about Bharat. They want to change their name. They couldn't introduce the bill in the parliament because they didn't have enough votes for constitutional amendment. India, that is Bharat, is constitutional name, and you can't change the name without constitutional amendment. Of course, a month ago, 2 months ago, February 3rd, during Kumbh Mela in Prayagraj, a new constitution for Hindu Rashtra was to be introduced, which in the end did not get introduced, but it had been leaked out to the press. So a number of at least Hindi newspapers had covered the outline of the new constitution for India. The question is, why do they want to change the name India? Why do some powerful people want to have a new constitution for India? And the short answer is because the name and the idea of constitutional government come from the Bible. Both the name and the idea of India come from the Bible. In order to understand the details, you have to get the book, and the new edition should be available within a week, so you can pre-order it. I think there is a QR code that is available for you to pre-order, but the old version is here. New version is better because Martin helped rewrite some of my English, for which I'm very grateful. But the young woman who oversaw the production of that project, Oila, she is also here with us. So your messages will go to her group. She works for an Australian company that has an office in Chennai. So she's been helping us with publishing as well as for managing this trip. Why did Christopher Columbus, and George Grant has just published a book on him, why was he looking for a sea route to India? He got stuck in the Americas because he had no idea that there is a whole continent between. If Columbus couldn't come to India, so Vasco da Gama, who started from Portugal, he did arrive in Calicut. Why were they looking for India?
All right. Without much ado, we'd like to call Dr. Vishal back onto the stage for a brief time of interaction. First question, Dr. Vishal, how are you doing?
Well, I had swollen feet for last 2 weeks because I had stopped a particular medication. So thankfully I was able to go, thanks to some Thomas here, Baptist Hospital, and they told me that I had stopped the wrong medicine. I should need to stop another medicine to start taking what I should have been taking. So I'm feeling great. This is a hectic 6 weeks tour, and but Ruth is the one suffering. Suffer in Hindi is traveling. So we go from here to Odisha, Andhra, Telangana, then to Dehradun, then Chennai, Mumbai, and then Oxford for a Education Revolution conference. So this is very hectic. And in between, I'm trying to get a book out. It is called Healing the Open Wounds of Islam. So it is a very pressured, hectic tour.
Wow, that sounds very packed. Well, we wanted to ask you a couple of questions. The first being, we've read your books. We really see this as an opportunity to know the person behind the book. So we'd like to hear your testimony, your story. Tell us how you came to the Lord and what put you on this path, on this trajectory, this wonderful time, where you helped us build so much wonderful literature for the church. Please tell us about that.
Thank you. I came to the Lord as a teenager. In a moral struggle, I had developed habits of stealing and lying. I was concerned about my habit of lying because I was losing friends. Nobody could trust. So I would decide in the morning that today I'm not going to tell a lie, but in the evening when I look back at the day, I lie to everybody. That was habits. Like people use swear word, curse word. I couldn't give honest, straightforward answers, deceiving, cheating, fooling people. So while I was struggling with trying to get willpower to control my tongue, it was an older brother who told me that, look, your problem is not lack of willpower. You are a very stubborn young man. Your problem is that the good news is that there is Savior who came to save us from our sin, He can change your life if you stop trying, but repent and ask Him to deliver you. So I asked to be delivered from my habit of lying, but Jesus went ahead and delivered me from habit of shoplifting as well. I was able to go back to those shops and apologize and offer restitution, and thankfully nobody took the money. These were small things, but they were very pleased that a young man had come confessing his sin and repenting. So that was a moral conversion, but it was when I was studying philosophy in the university that it became very difficult to believe if the Bible is God's word, because my professors were more educated than my pastors, and none of the professors believed the Bible. So why should I follow my pastors? Why not follow philosophers and professors? And I was studying the world's greatest minds in philosophy. And so it was easy to doubt the Bible. The tough question was, what then do you believe? So I decided that I'm going to believe what the greatest philosophers and scientists believe to be true. So what they know is the truth. So this was after I just finished my bachelor's exams. I began reviewing my course on philosophy, this time not to pass an exam, but to understand what the greatest minds in human history think is the truth. And as I began to review all the great philosophers, I was amazed to discover that my professors had known all along while they were teaching us that philosophers know that they don't know the truth. And that philosophy had concluded that the human mind cannot know the truth. That's exactly what Paul says, that thinking of themselves as wise, they have become fools. Truth can be known if there is someone who knows the truth and reveals it to us, because as the Buddha said, we are like the blind men trying to make sense of an elephant, and each of us talks about the elephant is like a pillar or like a wall or like a rope, and we fight with each other because we don't know the elephant. So, short answer, human mind cannot know the truth, human words cannot communicate the truth. So how do we know the truth? Is there someone who is not blind, who sees the old elephant, and who can communicate to us that, look, you're holding the leg, therefore you think that the elephant is like a pillar. If you move up, you can feel the wall, which is actually the stomach. If you move back, you can feel the rope, which is actually the tail, etc. If I begin to do what the person who is telling me, this is what elephant is. Now, he might tell me some things which I can never verify. If he says that the tusk of the elephant is ivory, I say, I don't know that, I cannot know that, what is red or what is pink or what is yellow, because I'm blind, but I know it's ivory because I know somebody who knows the truth, and he has told me what this is. So, theoretically, knowledge of truth is possible if there is someone who knows it and will communicate it, as parents would teach the truth to their children. Is there a God who would teach? So I began to look for, is there a God? Has He spoken? And I decided to first read the Vedas, because our professors had been praising the Vedas a lot. So I went to Gita Press, Gorakhpur, to look, to buy a set of Vedas in Hindi. And the Gita Press manager said that, sorry, we don't translate the Vedas, we don't publish it, we don't sell it. Vedas cannot be translated. In any case, Vedas were never written to teach you the truth. They are mantras that give you power. So if you want to study the Vedas, you have to find a guru who spent 14 years in a Gurukul, and you will memorize the Vedas and you will learn when to put how much ghee in the fire and pronounce the Vedas correctly enunciate correctly with correct intonation, then you will have power. Well, I said, well, it'll be very nice to have some power, but right now I'm looking for the truth. So it was interesting to discover that Vedas were never written down. Sanskrit has no script of its own. The decision to use Devanagari for writing Sanskrit was made because of a Presbyterian missionary in Banaras just about 150 years ago, Reverend Greaves. So since I was in Allahabad, the Muslim city, the Muslims had the monopoly of printing in Allahabad, which the press was brought by the missions, but Muslims had taken to that profession. There were many Muslim shops, but the Quran was not available in Hindi or Urdu, which I understood, or English. They said Quran cannot be translated. This is 60 years ago, of course. So it was my older sister who said, read the Bible. I said, I've read the Bible. She said, I said, I've read the Bible as childish stories. So she said, no, you were a child when you read the Bible. This is incidentally Rachna, who was part of In Touch Fellowship. Her mother was my older sister. So she was saying, you were a child when you read the Bible. Now you think you are a philosopher. So read it critically to see if the Bible is God's word. So that's what I began reading the Bible, and it was a long journey, which I don't need to get into it. By the time I was rereading First and Second Kings Chronicles, Samuel Kings Chronicles, that I began to realize that this is God's word. So that was my intellectual conversion to come to the conclusion that human mind cannot know the truth by itself because we are blind. But we can know the truth if there is revelation. And the fundamental problem with philosophy is that it rejects the possibility that God can reveal the truth, and it feels, no. Truth is what our minds think is the truth. And what is mind? If it is blind actions, reactions of chemistry in our brain, why should my brain chemistry be true and your brain chemistry be false? So what is brain? What is mind? Etc. These were philosophical questions. But specifically, in 1980, how I got into studying Indian history was in 1980, I was organizing relief for the victims of hailstorm in Chhatarpur, Madhya Pradesh. And the press gave a lot of publicity to what some of you know Bert Cherry, and Bert was there with us at that time. And we have one brother here from CSI who came a little later. He wasn't there at that time. But I got a notice from the district magistrate that your relief work is illegal, stop it. So I responded formally. It was a formal notice. So I responded formally, respectfully, that the scriptures exhort us to obey the magistrate. So we will obey your order and not collect any money for relief. We will just give. So I got a second order that how can you give if you're not collecting money? Your work is illegal, stop it. So I responded again that we will obey you, we will not give any money. Well, we will just get the victims to pray. There were victims in 100 villages who had lost their wheat crop. So we will pray. I got a third notice that your prayer meeting will create law and order problem in the district. So your prayer meeting is banned, stop it. At that point, we felt that no, if we obey this unjust order which robs us of our freedom, and this was not a sectarian prayer meeting in a church, this was Gandhi Ashram, a government-funded institution officially inviting us to pray Gandhian-style prayer meeting in their premises for all religions to come together and pray for the victims. So if they can stop our prayer meeting. They are robbing our freedom, one. But more than that, if we obey this order, the people will think that we are not good shepherds. When the wolves come, we run away first to save our lives. So do we have the right to disobey? And at that point, the government had spies in our community. We were about 30 people. We decided that we have to go ahead and pray they can do whatever they want to do. The superintendent of police called me and sat me down for an hour and told me that I have a 300-page file on you. I know everything you're doing in my district, and you are a gem. Nobody has done for the poor in Chhatarpur district what you're doing. And I have not read your book, The World of Gurus, but I have lots of reviews of your book. We don't have any author of your caliber in our district who is internationally appreciated. So I really respect you. But you cancel that Wednesday morning prayer meeting, otherwise I will personally kill you. I will not arrest you. I will not produce you before a magistrate. I will take you from your home into the jungle, shoot you, throw your bodies, hyenas will eat you. Are you going to cancel that prayer meeting? Well, I said, well, sir, I'll have to go and ask my wife if she is willing to be a widow. Then I can make a decision. He understood that I was not taking him seriously, which I wasn't. I didn't believe that a highly educated superintendent of police, IPS officer, who really respected me, could actually murder me cold-blooded. I didn't know that this was happening in India all the time. This is during the Congress rule. Indian civil services had degenerated to this point. So we came back and we discussed in our community, should we cancel the prayer meeting? And it was actually Bert Cherian who said that we must not underestimate the power of blindness. They can do what they are threatening to do. Well, in the end, because the local press, tabloid press was supporting me, they didn't kill me. They threw me in jail, in Tikamgarh jail. And this was another district. The jailer had no reason to fear the politicians in Chhatarpur. So he gave me a VIP treatment as a prisoner of conscience. I had a big room, a lot of time to think and pray. That's when I started writing that book, which is here, Truth Transforms. The first chapter was Jesus the Troublemaker. Jesus is doing a lot of good, healing people. Why is he being persecuted? Why do they want to kill him for doing good? Why is Paul getting into trouble all the time for preaching the good news, healing the sick, etc.? Why is the gospel such a threat to the kingdom of Satan? Will they kill me when I get out of the prison? So this began my study of how was modern India created, where we have a judiciary, in theory, free, and at that time, 1980, we have a press which is free, which is defending me every day. How were these institutions created? So that's a long background. So Truth and Transformation began to be written at that point. But later, when Roop Kanwar committed sati in Rajasthan in Sikar village, I wrote that story for Indian Express, and that began my journey into study of William Carey. I was able to mobilize 400 people to put pressure on the president to arrest, to compel Rajiv Gandhi to arrest the family that had incited this widow burning. But my opponents in Rajasthan, they were able to mobilize 2 lakh people. So 400 people in Delhi, it's backed by 7 MPs, 2 lakh people crowd in Rajasthan demanding that sati should be legalized, and the ban that the British had imposed on widow burning should be abolished. So how did William Carey, Rajaram Mohan Roy, etc. succeed in getting the widow burning abolished? And what do we have to do to defend the dignity of a widow, the right to life of a widow? So those questions were the background that led me to study the creation of modern India. And then I wrote 3 books at that time. We have only one of them here, and unfortunately we have the previous American edition printed in India. The new edition is called The Father of Modern India, William Carey. That William Carey, not Mahatma Gandhi, not Rajaram Mohan Roy, is the father of modern India. This was an audacious thesis which nobody in Sirampur was willing to accept, although Sirampur was created by William Carey. But the way the Christian mind has been shaped during the last 2 generations. So anyway, I'm still an amateur historian, but we're looking for a dozen or 2 dozen young people who will do it on the thesis that is proposed in these books. And there are 3 or 4 volumes that are coming. So that's long answer to your short question, the background of why I'm researching and writing and saying things which nobody else is saying at this moment, other than Brother Babu Varghese. But actually there are 30, 40 other people who have begun to research and write. And you will see the Indian history being rewritten, modern Indian history being rewritten.
It's very interesting to learn. So, Dr. Vishal, this is more of a question which, okay, so here's how I present this question. What are the top 3 takeaways that you would like people to remember? Whether or not they've read your book, but from that book, what are the top 3 takeaways for us as a community?
That the Bible created modern India, including the idea that India should be run on the basis of a constitution. As Moses says to Joshua, the book of the law shall not depart from your mouth. You shall meditate on it day and night, not turn from it to the left or to the right. What Moses says, that when you have kings in the future, they must make a copy of this law, keep it, obey it. What Samuel says, that, okay, I'm appointing Saul as your king, but your kings will become worse than pharaohs of Egypt unless they live by this law. That was used by the French Calvinists, the Huguenots, to articulate the modern concept of constitutionalism, and the USA, 13 British colonies coming together to become a nation, was the first written constitution which impacted the Indian constitution. Although we received the Westminster model of governance from Britain, Britain had no written constitution. It still doesn't. So Dr. Ambedkar and others had to rely heavily on the American Constitution. I have that history in this book of how modern constitutionalism was born, which is that our leaders should not, human beings should not rule. So I was limit myself to your question about 3 things. So first thing is that all our neighbors, Sri Lanka, Nepal, Bangladesh, Pakistan, they have already changed their constitutions many times. France had changed its constitutions at least 16 times since the French Revolution. Only those countries such as the USA, which believed that there are some things that are sacred in Constitution. It can be amended, but there are certain inalienable rights, for example, right to life. right to freedom, inalienable right to freedom, pursuit of happiness, etc. These cannot be amended or changed. People don't exist for the government. Government exists to serve the people. If Jesus himself gave his life for the people, then the government exists to protect our lives, facilitate abundant living, healthy living, not to deprive us of our right of life. So, is the Constitution is cut off from the Bible, it loses, if you believe that there is nothing sacred, man, as Mrs. Indira Gandhi said during the emergency, we wrote the Constitution, we can change it. In that case, if man is the ultimate sovereign, then we have condemned ourselves to live exclusively under sinful men. All rulers are sinners, but are you going to be ruled with nothing above human beings except sinful rulers who happen to acquire power through fair or foul means? It is sovereign God who abolishes the lordship of man, who transforms leadership into servanthood, the new kingdom, where the leaders will be your servants, will wash your feet. So, if the Bible is eliminated, the foundation of modern India is eliminated, then no one is safe, nothing is safe. Sitting chief ministers, deputy chief ministers can be arrested and thrown in jail and kept in jail. The evangelists and pastors from Punjab, which is relatively a persecution-free state, they can be framed in all sorts of court cases that you have raped a woman and you should be in prison for the rest of your life. Anybody can be killed. Judges can be killed in India. So the modern India, which secures our freedoms, which secures our property rights, all of that can be taken away unless Jesus is Lord and he is the ruler of the kings of the earth, unless this kingship of Christ. So that's the first thing. The second thing, which I'll talk tonight during the Zoom meeting, is that the great tragedy of the last 150 years, beginning with the Moody Bible Institute, the great tragedy of the evangelical movement is that our seminaries are training priests, not kings. We've been given the authority to be sons of God. Sonship is kingship. If your father is king, you are the prince, you are princes. You were slaves, now you are son. You have to manage your father's kingdom. Fear not, little flock, for it is your father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom. Today you are persecuted, but it is your father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom. You shall reign, because you're his son, king's son. So, during the age when the Roman Catholic and Protestants were establishing universities, a cobbler comes from Britain, gives us a university, Sirampur, and the entire college, university, school movement. These educational institutions were deliberately created to train Indians who can govern India. Lord Macaulay's brother-in-law, Charles Trevelyan, he wrote a book in 1838 on the education of the people of India, and on the first page he argues that the reason missions, and he's writing this 30 years before Mahatma Gandhi is born, the reason we are establishing these educational institutions, we are educating Indians, is to train Indians who can govern India. Priests and kings. When we, and brethren move as a guilt, burden of guilt on this, that my kingdom is not of this world. did Jesus mean that I did not bring my kingdom into this world? My kingdom is in heaven, and if you want to be in my kingdom, come to heaven. This is Satan's kingdom, where Herod can behead boys are in and around Bethlehem, where a public figure like John the Baptist can be beheaded by the king in the presence and his head brought before the mighty and strong who are celebrating his birthday, and none of them will protest that you cannot shed innocent blood. Why is he being killed? Because he said that it is not right for the king to take his brother's wife. When the Chief Justice says that this man is innocent, there is no reason to hang him, and then goes on to crucify him. This is kingdom of Satan. So when Satan says that these are my kingdoms, their glory, splendor is mine, he's not bluffing Jesus. In Satan's kingdom, has Jesus brought God's kingdom, that God's will should be done on earth? Is that the mission he's giving to us? And this is what began to transform the world, or create the modern world of freedom, etc. But our seminary movement abandoned the universities and colleges, and because so many of us are here from UESI background, if I may make this harsh statement, InterVarsity Fellowship, Campus Crusade, Navigators, all of these American movements that are reaching out to the university students, these movements begin by accepting defeat. We've lost Harvard, we've lost Oxford, Cambridge, Princeton, Yale. We cannot save these universities. The most we can do is go there and save souls, organize prayer cells. So this is what has happened to UESI from the very beginning. There were great people who mentored. I just visited Brother P.C. Varghese. These are great people who visited us. But the theology that they received from the USA was a corrupted Christianity that believed that we cannot win these universities, we cannot establish these universities, let's win souls, let's start Bible study groups. And this is not how we can disciple India. We have to go back to the generation of William Carey and Alexander Duff and John Harvard and all the people who educated and created the modern world. So the seminary movement has to grow into the university movement, where the Bible, theology is the queen of all sciences, where everything, the Bible is not put into an academic silo, but the Word of God is a light to all of life. So this is the third education revolution that we will talk about tonight. So that's my second point, that American evangelical Christianity has had a tremendously harmful impact on Christian theology in India. We were influenced by George Verwer, who studied at Moody Bible Institute. I was in a meeting where a senior member, a contemporary of George's generation, he was there, and he literally cried. He said that I was in the Moody Bible Institute in Chicago for 3 years. Under my window on the street, every weekend, anti-racism rallies, civil liberties rallies were happening. But for 3 years in Moody Bible Institute, not one professor said a word against racism, against discrimination of the blacks. That was our theology has no relationship to the America's burning issue of human equality. This is the time when Dr. Ambedkar was also studying in America, a little before that time, and he saw that Christianity in America had not confronted the evil of caste, the evil of racism. And we have received that kind of Christianity which is interested in taking souls to heaven, but is not challenging the evil of casteism evil of untouchability, of discrimination against women, discrimination against the lower caste. And this is where a theological revolution, do we really believe in human equality, that all men and women are made in God's image? So a renewal of the Indian church will require emancipating American church from the theological influence of American evangelicalism, which during our generation has been interested only in taking souls to heaven, not interested in making sure that God's will is being done on earth now, and paying the price for us, taking our cross. So this would be my second important point. What this shows is that if you so to say, if I had to limit myself to 3 points, my third point would be that evangelical Christianity gave up truth. Because evangelicalism misunderstood the reformers. The slogan, sola fide, faith alone, we are saved by faith. This has been misinterpreted by European and American evangelicals to mean truth is irrelevant, faith is sufficient. But that's not what the reformers were saying. Reformation was a battle for truth. We must believe that which is true. There was no slogan, sola veritas, truth alone, because truth was not in conflict between Roman Catholics and Protestants. Both believed that only that which is true should be believed. The battle was between faith and works. Are we saved by works or are we saved by faith? In that context, the reformers said faith alone. Faith alone didn't mean truth is irrelevant. This institution such as this exists to help students seek truth, believe truth, follow truth. Truth liberates, faith enslaves, including Jewish faith. That's what Jesus says to the Jewish Pharisees, that you are slaves of Satan. This is what Paul is fighting in the letter to Galatians, that the believers who are coming from Jerusalem, who want to circumcise you, they're trying to enslave you. Faith enslaves, including Christian faith enslaves. That's our problem. Truth liberates. That means that we must believe what is true. And if the nation has to be transformed, we have to bring the nation to live by its motto, Satyamev Jayate. It was Madan Mohan Malviya who studied in Allahabad. A missionary paid for him to study law in Calcutta, and then he went on to establish Banaras in the university. When he became the president of Indian National Congress, he made the slogan Satyamev Jayate, which comes from Mundaka Upanishads, but he was actually taking from John that Jesus is the truth. If you abide in his word, you will know the truth. It's the truth that will set you free. Chasing the British out of India is not freedom. If falsehood and deception begins to rule this country, you're not free. You're slaves. So Satyamev Jayate first became the motto of Indian National Congress through Madan Mohan Malviya. Then it became the motto of the nation. But there is no cultural, philosophical foundation for truth. If you read Mundaka Upanishad, it's a very short Upanishad. You can read it in half an hour. And this context of that statement, the truth always triumphs, Satyamev Jayate, is the Mundaka Upanishad says that no amount of reading of the Vedas will give you knowledge of the truth. Vedas, Upanishads didn't believe in propositional truth. The truth can be communicated in words because in the beginning was the word. By truth, Satya, Upanishadic, the Vedantic system believes that truth is experienced in a non-rational inner subjective experience. So 3 things to answer that question. The nation was built by the Bible. Modern India was built by the Bible. If the Bible goes and Christian schools, colleges are no longer allowed to teach the Bible in most places, if the Bible goes, nation degenerates and self-destructs. Two, or the third which I've made is a recovery of truth. And this misunderstanding the Protestant slogan of faith alone, meaning the truth is irrelevant, let the universities and the world deal with truth, we will teach faith, which saves. And the second point that I made is that discipling nation is educating nation. Baptizing nations is immersing nations in the truth of the triune God, Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. In order to disciple India, the mission began, the missionary movement began to educate India. Now education for most schools, colleges, has become what is called Christian education, is secular education managed by the church. We are not educating and discipling the nation. And this is where we need a number of young people who will come forward to take up these subjects for PhD level, to rewrite Indian history and literature and economy. This process has begun, but we need help from many more younger people who are more capable than us. So I hope I have not confused you too much, but that's a long answer to 3 short answers that you wanted.
Sure. Thank you so much, Dr. Vishal. I mean, it was definitely made a lot of sense. So now we will move on to the questions that have been coming. Now, one thing I need to state is that we have 25 questions and less than 20 minutes. Okay, so but okay, so for what I've done now is I've looked at some of these questions and I'm going to club a few which are having a similar approach. So one of the most common questions that I see being asked in the list of questions I'm receiving today is about forced conversions that are happening or that have happened in the past. What do we mean by forced conversions? Has something like that happened? What is it that the church needs to do to make sure we don't, present that image?
Thank you. One of my books, which is not available right now, but can be ordered through Trias, is called Conversion, the Revolution India Needs. Attacking the church for conversion. Brother Ebenezer Sundaraj wrote the book Confusion Called Conversion, which was excellent, which we published as Tracy. Then he revised it as National Debate on Conversion, but it has not it has not really been debated in the secular press. So when the Supreme Court was discussing the conversion case 2 years ago, I wrote a book, Conversion, the Revolution India Needs, but it was being published in England, and the publisher gave me lots of instructions of how to edit it, and I never had the energy to complete editing, so it's not been published. But if you help me, he's a very good editor, we can bring that book out. So we need to defend that conversion is exactly what India needs. There is a lot of forced conversion that is happening in India. Most of the force is coming from Hindutva brigade. They're forcing. In UP a week ago, Christian leaders told me that as many as 2,000 house churches have backslidden. But thankfully, approximately similar number of new house churches has come into existence. It is the Hindutva movement which is forcing people in two ways. Why are these lower castes turning to Christ? Because they understand better than most evangelists that caste system has survived in India. Buddhism was eliminated out of India by force. You can't keep 84%, 80% of the population as Shudras, untouchables, except through force. So the people who are forcing them to remain Shudras, we'll give you reservations, you remain Hindu Shudras. The force is being used by the government of India, inducement, lalach. It was Nehru's policy from Punjab to UP, Kota, Eta, Mainpuri area, the whole area, the lower castes were turning to Christ, beginning with Praying Heights movement. And it was Nehru's party that the reservations will not be available only to the Shudras if they remain, or as scheduled castes if they remain Hindus. So the lalach to prevent conversion was initially given by the Congress leadership, the soft Hindutva, or Nehru was not soft Hindu, but Indira Gandhi was, and Rajiv was. They were pretending to be soft Hindus. And this has now become force. The more you force them that, look, I want you to remain a Shudra, I want you to remain an untouchable, they are driving people into Christianity. So my book, Why Conversion, the Revolution India Needs, begins with the case in Tamil Nadu, which happened when I was writing the book, of in a village, a lot of children were getting stomach diseases, and doctors suspected that this has to do with contaminated water, and district magistrate came and investigated the water tank. Fecal matter, human fecal matter had been dumped into that water tank by the upper castes. The caste conflicts had been going on in that village for some time. Why should those people remain Hindus who are being treated in this dehumanizing manner? So if the force is being used to drive these people out of Hinduism to Christ or to Islam, this is force is being used by the Hindutva movement, and forcing the converts to revert into Hinduism, Ghar Vapsi. That's also the force being used by Hindutva. You can't sustain a caste-based religious system through civility and tolerance. Only intolerance, only force can sustain for thousands of years a dehumanizing social order. That's what is happening in India, and we need to speak clearly. So, the book is readable. It can be much improved, but you can already order that book, and that's. I can go into details, but we need to make that argument. And originally, the thesis of that book developed. I had a meeting with, some of you might know, Chandu Wakankar. Chandu Wakankar organized a meeting between RSS leaders and me. There were 7 RSS intellectuals. They wanted only one question: why do you people convert? So originally I wrote a little booklet. Why must we convert? Why do you convert? So that booklet was adapted for the GLS book, Burnt Alive, when Graham Staines and his sons were burnt alive, and Babu Varghese and others wrote that book, Burnt Alive, and then I was invited to contribute to this whole discussion on conversion. But that I have now expanded, and that, so my answer to that question is that yes, force is being used to convert the lower castes to Christ, and that force is being exerted by the Hindu religious forces that are harassing the lower castes, and to escape from that harassment, from that force, they're coming to Christ, because Christ said, "Come unto me, all ye that are labor and heavy laden, burden, I will give you rest." They have no rest within the Hindu social order of caste and untouchability. They find Jesus as the liberator, and the force that is being used by the kingdom of Satan to drive the people out of the kingdom of Satan. That's my brutal answer, which is being recorded and hopefully will be online. Then I hope that some of these people will hear and be angry with it, but will come to terms of it. One top RSS intellectual was coming to Washington, D.C. 3 weeks ago and wanted to meet me to hear what Christians have to say to the RSS as it plans for the next 100 years. But this is what I would say to the RSS, that look, you guys are using the force that is driving lower castes out of Hinduism to Christ.
Thank you, Dr. Vishal, for that answer. So in the interest of time, I'll probably just ask you one more question from this. One of the questions that seems to be a little bit coming in different forms is, how do we say that the first scientific institutions came from the Bible? Did India not have the Aryabhattas and the other mathematicians and other people like that? That seems to be a question that comes a lot. One of the premises in your book is that universities and colleges were really instituted by the missionaries who came to India under the influence of the Bible. What about this other story where you have institutions teaching mathematics in different forms in many millennia back?
India never lacked intelligence or genius. In mathematics, in surgery, in several spheres. That ability which is latent, God's image that is in everyone, was present here, but our culture did not allow that latent ability to develop. So, Jews all over the world are only about 14 million people, 7 or so million living in Israel, 7 or so million living outside. They have won something like 210 Nobel Prizes. India, who are 140 crores, we have won about 14 Nobel Prizes. 7 of them were people of Indian origins who had become citizens outside. 7 were still Indian citizens. So not all of these were in science and medicines and technology, but who suppress the ability of Indians? That when Indians get out of India, then they blossom. Well, when they're living in India, and I was saying this to the university last week, why aren't our university professors winning Nobel Prizes? Because if there is a brilliant professor who has a really good idea, which should be supported, financed, developed, could eventually have patent rights and could eventually have Nobel Prize, his department, his head of the department, his dean, they will put him down. They will give him unnecessary jobs to do, which others should be doing, and allow him to focus on his research. The universities will pull down their own best talent because we cannot support others to rise. We have to make sure that I'm the head of the department or I'm controlling the finance, you stay down. So it's our culture which has prevented, part of that culture was that if I'm Sushruta, I'm a great surgeon, I will not write down my knowledge, make it available to everybody. I will only pass out to my son, who will pass the family knowledge to his son, and the power of knowledge stays in the family, and ultimately you don't have a son or you have an incompetent son, and that knowledge dies out. It does not bless. When God is trying to fill the earth with the knowledge of truth, knowledge, wisdom, understanding, we were a culture who was hiding, preserving knowledge, not sharing the power of knowledge. That's, for example, we had a very sophisticated language, Sanskrit. Sanskrit could not become the mother tongue of Brahmin boys and girls because the learned Brahmins would not teach Sanskrit to their own wives. If wives don't speak Sanskrit, how can it become the mother tongue of Brahmin children? So as a result, today in the world, only 25,000 people speak Sanskrit because the knowledge that we had was not communicated even to our wives and daughters, and not to all the sons either. So, not one single Hindu ashram gurukul ever developed into universities. What about Nalanda and Takshila? Both were Buddhist centers, and the head of the history department in Delhi University, Dr. Jha, who is a Maithili Brahmin, he has published his research that it was two Brahmins who burned down Nalanda, not Khilji, as the Hindus keep saying that the Muslims came and burned down Nalanda. This is Maithili Brahmin, Dr. D.N. Jha, is it, who has documented this. So the two centers of great learning did begin, but 200 years ago, there was not one Indian in India who had ever heard of Nalanda. It was by accident that an English gentleman officer who was passing through that village, and the boys who were playing there pointed to him to this strange mud mountain. And when the digging began, they discovered this institution or these structures. And they had to read Chinese travelers and Greek travelers who had traveled to India to learn about Nalanda, that we had these centers of education. What was being taught in those centers is the key question. The main thing that was being taught in those centers was the art of emptying your mind. How do you silence your thought? These institutions, Nalanda and Takshila, were not teaching how to cultivate your mind. You've heard of the technology called Vipassana. It is very popular in California right now, very popular in India. Even Rahul and Priyanka practice Vipassana. This is an art of silencing your mind by concentrating in your inhaling and exhaling. Your breath becomes your meditation. This technology was lost in India. This yoga, Vipassana, was lost in India. It was there in Myanmar in Buddhist centers. When the hippies went to Myanmar, they found Vipassana and brought it back to India. It's become very popular since the 1970s, Vipassana. But those were the techniques that were being taught in Nalanda and Takshila. How do you silence your mind? I've written about it, its impact on China in this book. Why did the university movement develop in Europe? And in spite of the potential that India could have had great university, why didn't a single university was born out of Hindu ashrams and gurukuls? That's a very key subject that Hindus have to contemplate. Did we have the ability? We did. Our worldview, our philosophy, our culture did not allow those abilities to develop. And this is something which Indian historians have to come up with and confront. But briefly, if I may extend on that, from 1190 or so, when University of Bologna, the first university in the world, it was a law university, was born, chartered by the Pope, until 1520, when the Reformation started the second education revolution. All the universities in Europe were chartered by the Pope or by the bishops, because most of the rulers were illiterate or semi-illiterate. Church, the Pope, voice of the God was Pope. The intellectual authority in Europe was with the church. Church was establishing. When Martin Luther learned the priesthood and kingship of all believers, and evangelicalism doesn't talk about kingship of all believers, it focuses on priesthood of all believers. When you learned about the priesthood and kingship of all believers, Luther saw the Pope as the Antichrist. His view of the Antichrist is very different than our view of the Antichrist. He read Lorenzo Valler's critique of the authority of temporal authority of the Pope, and concluded the Pope is the Antichrist. Who should then begin chartering the universities and schools? It was Protestant movement that took the authority from the church, gave it to the prince. The prince would now give charter. If you want to start a university, you have to get a charter from the prince. Most of the princes in the Protestant movement were illiterate or semi-illiterate. The real intellectual authority was the community of the teachers, the professors in Wittenberg University or wherever. But recognition came from the prince. At that time, in Protestant nation, the prince were under the moral authority of the reformers. But now, you have very corrupt rulers. Many of the rulers in the world come to power through revolution, through assassination, through coups, through deception, rigging elections. If you want to go to the chief minister in most states in India and ask to be given a charter to be a university or a medical college or an engineering college or a high school, you will have to pay a lot of bribe. Why should these corrupt bureaucrats, politicians have the authority to rule over the educators who are trying to shape the character of the young people? So a new education revolution which takes the authority of educating the next generation away from these wicked politicians is necessary. When an institution is giving huge bribes to establish a medical college, then that founders of the medical college have to charge a high capitation fee and big fee from students in order to enroll. Only the rich can do that. So this corruption of education system today is hurting the poor. If you have to establish a school in a village, the law requires you to have so many square feet of rooms, so many bathrooms, so much office space, etc. And once you have put that kind of capital investment and bribed the authorities to establish a high school, you have to charge the students. Only the rich, the capable families can educate their children. Poor cannot be educated. So our culture of corruption in education is stifling the potential and talent of students. This is why a third education revolution is necessary, about which we will talk at 7 o'clock this evening on Zoom, and you can join us. The church can renew the soul of India. India can become a great nation. There is no reason why India cannot become the greatest nation in the world, because we have more young people than anyone else. But the energies of those young people, ability of those young people is not being blossomed because of the corruption of our culture, including the corruption of the ministries of education in India. And that's what calls for a new education revolution to make India great again.